What's up guys, it's Ben in Parts here. Welcome back to yet another episode of this Cryptid cast where we break down cryptids, their sightings, their possibilities, what they could or couldn't be and if they could be real or not. And today I have a cryptid that isn't a cryptid per se. Some people see it as a creature, but the vast majority of people see it as what it is, a spirit, a forest spirit. I believe that beings of the unseen exist all around the world and different cultures and religions call them different names. Some call them spirit guides, some people call them jinns or genies, some people call them demons, some people call them nature guides, fairies, fays. They exist in a dimension that we can't see, but sometimes they take different shapes and we can perceive them in those shapes. And today I have the Leshy, a forest spirit not only known in Poland, but also in Russia, in Belarus, in Ukraine, in Latvia and Lithuania, all across many Slavic countries. Some see it and revere it as a deity, some see it as a spirit, and a small minority view it as a creature. But as you'll see, it's plainly not a creature. I've included it in the Cryptid cast in an honorary way because it's mysterious, but I'm thinking I should seriously make another podcast dedicated to spirits, so please let me know in the comment section if I should. With that, let's get started. The Leshy, or Leshia if it's female, is seen as a deity in early pagan Slavic mythology, ruling over the forest and hunting. And after pagan times and during Christian times, it's seen as a forest spirit. There's a similar deity in the past known as the Sviatibor, or Sviatiobor, or Sviatibog, which is thought to have been revered by both the Eastern and Western Slavs, seen as a divine arbiter of woodland realms, and the sovereign ruler of other forest spirits. And the Leshy, both in pagan times, in Christian times, and in the modern day, is often seen as a masculine humanoid spirit, and has the ability, linked to what I said earlier on, to disguise itself as any person. It can change in size, in stature, in sex. In some accounts, they're often described as having wives, having children, having families like humans. The only difference is that they live apart from humans, they don't want to mingle too much with humans, and they see themselves as very separate from humans. And linked to this, their stance towards humans is ambiguous. Sometimes they're good to humans, sometimes they're bad with humans, and it often depends on how respectful or not respectful the person is of the forest. The Leshy is especially said to have the power to whisk away children from families, often children who are mistreated, to bring them away to live among themselves, to play tricks on people, to mislead people in the forests, to play pranks on people, but at the same time is also said to treat people well in certain cases, depending on how good or bad this or that Leshy is, and also to often assist them. It's very remarkable the consistency with which the Leshy is described. In all the ancient tales and even the modern tales, it's often described as being part plant, part human, which often looks either human or plant-like or a mixture of both. Sometimes it's portrayed as plant-like, such as looking like a revered sacred tree, such as a pine, a spruce or a birch. Sometimes it's seen as more human-like, with long tangled hair that looks like tree branches, beards made of linen, clothing and skin the colour of bark, and some people think this inspired J.R.R. Tolkien's depictions of the Ents, the tree herders, the shepherds of the forest, because in early days the Leshy was seen as a deity that protected the forests, just like Treebeards and the Ents were seen as the magical trees that protected Fangorn forests. And the Leshy, like I said, linked to this earlier, will treat you well or badly depending on how well you treat the forest. If you go in there and you cut trees down and you're loud and you're disruptive and you're abusive to the animals, the Leshy is said to slash at people, to try and tickle them to death, to try and crush them, to lure them into dark places where they won't be found and may starve to death, to attack them in some way, to take the wheels off of their carts, meaning that they get stuck in the mud. It's also said to whip people with trigs, create noise and humming sounds, and even to be so strong that it can actually split trees. And furthermore, linked to its shape-shifting traits, as said before, during doing this, and sometimes outside of doing this, it can take the form of bears, wolves, owls, hares, frogs, crows and magpies, and can even sometimes take the form of a half-man, half-goat, and very critically, of an ape-like being, much like Bigfoot. And it makes me wonder if the reason why we haven't found Bigfoot in America is that this is a spiritual being, not a physical one. Bigfoot is a spirit that takes the form of a hairy ape-like wild man and then dematerializes when people actually come to find it, meaning we have no body, no carcass, no nothing. Could it be that the Leshy taking a form of a goat-like being or an ape-like being is very much like the American Bigfoot, which sometimes takes the form of the so-called goat man or the so-called ape man? I honestly think there is a connection here. And the Leshy, furthermore, is often accompanied by an animal as a companion, or in magical terms a familiar, such as a black dog or a small black goat. Think about how in medieval England and many other places, witches were depicted as coming with familiars. Black dogs, black cats, black goats, and many other things. Furthermore, the Leshy is often known as having a flat, long face, especially in Belarus, a wedge-shaped beard, one eye, and bizarrely one backward leg. And the image of the Leshy as a wise old man with a grey beard is often widespread. This is one of the most common forms it takes when it takes the form of a human. Frequently, when it wants to be mischievous, the Leshy can take on the guise of a family member or a friend, or someone familiar to a person in the area, and this trickery might only actually be exposed when the person comes home, and they see their relative and they're like, "Hey, I saw you in the forest. But you did not see me in the forest." Anyway, the Leshy is also sometimes said to be a colossal giant, which can cross rivers in a single stride when it takes the form of a giant. Sometimes it takes the form of a small person, and in many belief systems it's said that the Leshy changes its height based on the surrounding vegetation so it can fit in a form of camouflage. In the most northern forested regions of Russia, the Leshy was often seen as different species based on its size. Some were guardians of the forest, some guarded plants like mushroom and took the form of mushrooms, and some looked quite like mosses. And when they took the form of a human, they were often said to wear human-like clothing, such as an amirak, a wooden homemade kaftan, a siberka, a balaclava, a cassock with wide sleeves, a wide-brimmed hat, a pointy cap. They were known to despite taking often strange humanoid forms, to sometimes even dress in the clothes of humans to camouflage themselves in. It's not known if some of them didn't do it exactly successfully because their power wasn't very strong, or if this was only a half-hearted attempt, but it seems like the strongest of the Leshies, according to these legends, can very successfully appear to be humans when they want. Furthermore, it was even believed that strong winds accompanied the Leshies from ahead and behind, which could show the direction the Leshy was heading. So if it was heading to the north, the wind would blow north, south, the wind would go south, and this wind furthermore serves another purpose, because it erases the tracks of the Leshy. In other words, it stops it being found, hunted by dogs, stops humans causing it problems, and furthermore, should humans cause it problems, the Leshy is often known to drive them out of the wood by making lots of noise. You will hear shrieking sounds, sounds of laughter, deafening sounds, or conversely, the entire forest might go silent in an eerie way, which is often an encouragement to someone that a Leshy is in the area and that they should vacate the area quickly. Furthermore, encounters with these Leshies can take place in the forest at any time, and they often dwell in places like old dry trees, in hollows, in stumps, fallen logs, abandoned huts, and secret caves. Much like the traditions of the jinns in the Islamic world, the Leshy likes to live in secluded places, it doesn't like to mingle too much with human civilization, it keeps to itself, and it even has families and children. It's widely talked about that there are female Leshies, and that these female Leshies are, much like with humans, the wives and the daughters of the Leshy. They often appear as grotesque beings in some depictions with exaggerated features, but can also take the form of regular women, unclothed, dressed in rags, dressed in flowering garments, with wild hair adorned with branches, or they could also appear as a scary old lady. And also, some traditions have them appearing as gigantic giant women, just like the male Leshies, that can be awe-inspiring to look at. Are incredibly powerful figures, can emit terrifying cries, will lure wanderers off course, often by appearing seductively, and will also share food with people if it's good, or snatch food and snatch children when it's bad. And regardless of sex or gender, there are stories of the Leshies either helping people, like I said before, or assisting people. People will often make deals with the Leshy in return for protection or help. Around St. Nicholas's Day on May 9th, shepherds would make agreements with the Leshy. They would make agreements with the Leshy on Easter, on the night of Ivan Kupala, on the night of Agathon the Monk on August 22nd. The Leshy would often make mischief, but it would, if people made sacrifices to it, or offered it food, or offered it drink, they would leave the person alone, and that person would be seen as having the Leshy's protection. However, this is controversial in Christianity and other religions, because making sacrifices to the genies, aka the jinns, aka the spirits, aka the Leshies, is seen as a form of worship because you're only meant to make sacrifices and devotions to God. So if you're claiming that this Leshy has the power to help or harm you and treating it like God, it's widely seen as a blasphemous act. So it's not so commonly done in this day and age, but it's said that some shepherds still do widely ask for help from the Leshy and seek it. Many hunters are said to believe that even today that their hunting success is determined by the Leshy, which can distribute the bounties of the forest to humans, can help out in a fruitful hunt if one offers something like an Easter egg, or the traditional bread mixed with salt, bread mixed with one's own hair or nails, by sacrificing some blood from one's own finger, or even, much more ominously, writing a contract in blood. If you're on the good side of the Leshy, all is meant to be well and good, but if you're on the bad side of the Leshy, like I said before, it can obstruct the road, it will take seductive forms to lure male travellers off course, it will lose people in the forest, it will tickle them. Sometimes these pranks and these actions are not hostile per se, in the sense that they're not done for a really evil purpose, they're just done to cause mischief, and it makes me wonder if these are young juvenile Leshies doing this. So this is incredibly fascinating stuff. For the record, I do believe in the Leshy. I believe it's very much a real thing. It's very much a real being. It's very much a real creature of the unseen. There aren't as many sightings of it today because mankind has pushed into the forests and logged the forests and sadly destroyed much of its homeland. But I believe that much like, say, the peoples of the Amazon, the Leshies are still out there today, are still thriving, and even if they may be more reluctant to associate with humans, and who can blame them, they may still help humans and hinder humans depending on what they want. But what do you people think? Have any of you ever seen a Leshy? Do any of you have a sighting of a Leshy? Have your family ever encountered them? I would love to read that in the comments section below. And I would also love you to stay tuned for the next episode. So subscribe to this channel, to hit the bell button, and to follow me on Instagram. I'm working on a UFO podcast, a spirit podcast, and I'm continuing on this Cryptid podcast. So I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.